Modern games are obsessed with playability. They want to make sure you know where to go, what you're doing, and how you're supposed to be doing it. Yellow paint, map markers, corridor-like level design, all these features exist to make sure you know what's going on. Features like aim assist or QuickTime events exist for a similar reason. Game designers want to avoid any confusion, to bypass the fumbling around and get you into the game. But what happens when this goes too far? We've all seen the clips from God of War Ragnarok where characters will just say the solution to the puzzle aloud. We've seen the bloated open-world map screens with 1,000 objective markers calling for your attention. It can be hard to tell the difference between rough edges that need to be sanded out and meaningful gameplay challenges that should be protected. But the reality is that most modern games don't ask much from you. When I was a kid, video games seemed like magic. The world seemed alive, real, and reactive. Some of that feeling came from the fact that I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know how games worked, so I felt like anything could be possible. But these games hardly explained themselves. They dropped you in and let you work it out for yourself. If you play an older Pokemon game, they barely tell you anything about what to do or where to go. Beat the gyms, catch the Pokemon, go. You'll get lost if you don't go around talking to random NPCs to work out where the next objective is. Modern Pokemon is safety padded in comparison. You can't take 2 steps without a character pointing you to your next map marker. The game defines itself for you, tells you exactly what's going on, exactly what you should do, and exactly how to do it. By making itself transparent, the game loses that sense of discovery. There's no question about what you could or should do, no problem solving, no experimentation. That feeling of discovery was why those old games connected with me, and without it, they largely feel hollow. I even struggle to revisit old Pokemon games that I've played before because they are known to me now. Despite all this, I can't blame developers for simplifying things. I got lost trying to play Fire Red as a kid. To say, hey, make your games less clear so that I get to work things out for myself sounds kind of silly. All game designers have an incentive to make their game as easy to understand as possible. Game devs are competing with iPads and social media. If someone puts down your game out of frustration, chances are they aren't picking it back up. There are 1,000 other things ready to pounce on your attention. When I was a kid, I had one game. I was going to play that one game, and if I couldn't work something out, I would try and try again. Games could be obtuse and confusing because, frankly, I had nothing better to do with my time. I could spend hours exploring and working out what I was supposed to do. But that isn't the world we live in now. This is not necessarily bad. I don't like getting lost when I play games, so I'm not inherently opposed to mechanics that guide me through the experience. Some games get criticized for being linear roller coasters, but I don't know about you. I like roller coasters. I don't have an issue with the fact that some games guide you through them. I don't dislike that linear games exist or that open world games tell you where to go. I have an issue when most games are unwilling to let you work anything out for yourself. How do we balance that sense of discovery I got from older games with the streamlined experience of modern games? Keep the sense of discovery but lose the confusion. Some recent games do aim to address this, to provide that player discovery I'm craving. Breath of the Wild gives you a pretty open environment and lets you make your way through its massive world. Dark Souls lets itself be ambiguous, but one of the most interesting games I've played recently that engages with this sense of discovery in a unique and compelling way is Dishonored. I played Dishonored for the first time recently, and I was startled by how little time it spends telling you what to do. There's a lot of elements to this. Tutorials are all delivered as part of the narrative, the UI is minimalist and unobtrusive, but what I find most interesting is how willing it is to let you try things out and solve problems on your own. You are given a task, but you are rarely told how to go about it. You need to get somewhere, do something, but the game seems to have no preference for how you do it. Approach your target from the rooftops, sneak through the shadows, or even just forge right through the open. You could poison your target, shoot them from afar, assassinate them from behind, or even search for a non-lethal option. There's never just one way to approach a problem. There is always another option, and there is a joy in finding those new paths yourself. Right at the start of the game, you escape from a jail cell and find yourself facing a room full of guards. Immediately, you have options. I chose to sneak up behind the guards and take them out non-lethally. But when I dropped the body, it fell to the floor and made a sound. Suddenly, every single guard in the room turned toward me. When I went back to this level, I realized that I could have caught the body, moved it out of the way, and continued to move stealthily around the room, sneaking past or taking out the other guards. I also could have rushed into the room, cutting people down. This level of freedom is relatively minor compared to the rest of the game, but it is a statement of intent. It doesn't tell you what to do, it lets you work it out yourself. Later in the game, there are dozens of different paths and a range of options: sneak past, subdue, distract. It dials up the scale and freedom until you have something magical. Dishonored is the antithesis of the overbearing design of some modern games. It cannot guide you or solve its own puzzles for you because it doesn't actually mind how you approach them. It gives you a situation and tells you to figure it out. You can assess the problem and solve it logically, as you would any real-life problem. Dishonored is the first immersive sim that I've played, and as a newcomer to the genre, this kind of design is incredibly novel and exciting. If you are like me, tired of games that don't ask anything of you, Dishonored forces you to think, to experiment, and to discover what you can do. These games are built on interlocking gameplay systems. You have an environment you can traverse, a set of abilities, and a range of obstacles. All these elements have their own rules and logic, and the game relies on you playing with those rules to come up with a solution. This is often referred to as emergent gameplay that emerges as a result of engaging with a game's systems. It's a big ask from a design perspective, to ask a developer to build systems that are interesting enough to play with, but robust enough that the player can't break the entire game. It also removes the opportunity to pace and script the perfect experience. Pacing a linear roller coaster is relatively straightforward. Vary the tone and style of gameplay. Some action here, some exploration here, then some puzzle solving, and back to action. Dishonored loses that power over the player. You can't force someone into an action scene when you're trying to design a game that can be played without killing anyone. Dishonored gives you the freedom to make your own fun, but you can equally make your own frustration. Because ultimately, it's up to you to find a solution. If you can't work something out, or worse still, the solution you do find is boring and tiresome, it's possible to have a pretty bad time. When playing Dishonored, I felt like a child who had been left in the playground unsupervised. I could do whatever I wanted. For better and worse, you can't have this exciting emergent gameplay without that risk. You can't give the player freedom to do whatever they want without giving them the freedom to ram their head against a wall. Dishonored addresses these concerns through the chaos system. Basically, if you kill a lot of people during missions, you get a high chaos score, leave most people alive, and you get a low chaos score. This helps you structure your play, encouraging you to set goals and stick to a particular style. By providing some structure for how you play the game and encouraging you to find particular solutions to problems, Dishonored subtly nudges you into interesting gameplay flows. It's a relatively neat solution to the problem, streamlining your experience and encouraging you to play in interesting ways, while still allowing for a sense of discovery and not dictating your playstyle. The system is a little limited. The high and low chaos options are a restrictive binary, echoing the simple good, bad playthrough options of games like Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect, but it does ultimately provide a helpful level of structure for players. Dishonored is, in a lot of ways, the game I have always wanted. The games I played as a kid felt alive and reactive, but only because I didn't actually understand how they worked. Dishonored is truly that reactive. Its minimal UI keeps itself out of your way, and some handy design elements guide you toward interesting gameplay styles. Outside of games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it's one of the only games that has left me truly awed by what's possible. I was persistently delighted by the number of options on display, by just how much it would let me do. I still hear people talking about how they wish there was more freedom in games, how they wish they could approach problems in novel and creative ways. But that game released already. That game has been out for 12 years. In fact, if you think about other immersive sims, games like Deus Ex, Hitman, Thief, they've been out for a long time. The idea of a game that is reactive, that allows you to solve problems in creative ways, has always been fashionable to gamers, but immersive sims never seem to sell well. We do see some of these design elements in more recent releases, obviously like Breath of the Wild and Baldur's Gate 3. And if you found you enjoyed that kind of freedom and you're struggling to find other games that give you that player choice, that freedom, I'd head into Dishonored.